Get ready to take a flamethrower to the official narrative and learn what the elites don't want you to know. You're listening to The Tom Woods Show.
Hey everybody, Tom Woods here. It's episode 2634 of The Tom Woods Show, and I'm delighted to have our old friend Sarah Thompson with us again. Sarah is a professional homeopath, a great libertarian I've gotten to know over the years. And Sarah, I do want to make sure we remember to take a few minutes in the middle of the episode to talk about your appearance at Porkfest. I am very, very much in favor of people attending Porkfest this year. They're really, really great people lined up, and you are one of them. But also the great Clifton Duncan. You need to meet Clifton Duncan, and I'm glad you're going to have a chance to do that. But anyway, Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And I was really excited to see that he's going to be at Porkfest because I booked that right away a year ahead. So I never know. It's always a treat.
Well, it so happens that, and we should get into our subject matter as soon as possible, but Eric Brakey, who is now executive director of the Free State Project, was on the Tom Woods cruise. He heard Clifton sing. Clifton, of course, is you all know by now, the Broadway actor whose career was ruined because he wouldn't take the shots, but he has a voice that would just knock your socks off. And I wonder if after that, Eric said, we got to get this guy at Porkfest. And it's like, I feel like I've helped to bring Doc Dixon, the magician, into, wider recognition among our people. And I hope the same thing happens for Clifton Duncan. But anyway, let's talk about Sarah Thompson in particular. And I want to get your thoughts on what's been going on with RFK Jr. because so far there's been, there've been a lot of complaints that, now that he's actually got this position that he says that he's wanted for some time, now it sounds like he's moderating or he's censoring himself or he's saying the opposite of what he had been saying in the past. What's your perspective on this? Because you're not a squish. You're pretty hardcore on these issues.
I'm pretty hardcore.
Yeah.
I'm pretty hardcore, but I also, and this has been there's been a bit of a shift for me, I would say, over the past couple of years when it comes to realpolitik, because what happened under the COVID tyranny was so horrific. And it was so clear that insofar as our system, to what extent we have the states' right system in this country, that there can be some competition between the states. It was much better to deal with Florida's version of statism than Maine's version of statism. And I thought, okay, well, if it's statism versus statism, we have to think about this. And of course, RFK is a lawyer. He knows what he's doing. He's careful with his words. And to even get someone like that, to get him into this position took an incredible amount of wheeling and dealing. And I mean, I don't have any bright backroom boys information. I just know, certainly I'm tapped into MAHA folks. I'm talking to people who are very well connected, but I myself, it's not like I'm on the phone with them. So I'm having to judge this based on what I see and based on analysis. But, as a libertarian, I think that we recognize that it's all well and good to go to the town meeting and say, we're going to get rid of all the rules, all the regulations, all the taxes. And people might even say, oh, that sounds like a good idea. But then when somebody comes in and says, but watch out, you guys, you won't have roads anymore, they'll get right back in the pen. They're going to panic. So I think that there's this idea that sometimes just because some of us who are out on the tails are ready for this big dramatic shift to happen, it's easy to forget that. And this is full circle with how I think about health in general. If there's not the susceptibility and the reception to the remedy, the approach, it won't work. It won't land. It'll skip right over. If RFK came out and went as hard as in my heart I want him to go, I think it could really work against what we're trying to accomplish. And that doesn't mean that anybody should ever not tell the truth. And I don't think that he has said things that are untrue. He has said them in ways that are politically very careful and I completely am on board with the idea that this seems like a very different tact from what we were hearing before the election. But if you read between the lines, there is so much more space than there has ever been. I mean, we're talking about the Health and Human Services Department. There's so much more space than there's ever been to start having these conversations. And now he's coming out and making an extremely bold claim about autism and the causes of autism and what we're going to know. I believe he put a September date on
Yeah, I was
releasing
going to ask you about that. Let me ask you about that.
Yeah.
That seems like such a promise. Like I would never make a promise like that with that kind of a short deadline when you're dealing with something that has. Now, I know that there are a lot of people who think there's a connection between autism and the you-know-whats. We still have to watch what we say.
The things we don't name.
The things we don't name, rhymes with vaccine. But if you put that aside, if you look at the mainstream medical community, they profess to be absolutely baffled by this. Mm-hmm. So if that's the case, to say, well, by September, we're going to have the answer, that is so provocatively risky unless he frankly already knows the answer.
Right. And that's for sure. There is so much research that has been suppressed and denied and this is only my opinion. This is not coming from anywhere inside, but I have to believe that they feel like they have what they need to make whatever claims they're going to make. The question in my mind is always how to prepare the ground for that to be received. I mean, certainly we have seen, a real wake up. I thought I was appropriately cynical about the workings of the state since I was about 6 years old, but it turns out that it knows no bounds. And the ability of the vested interests inside and deep inside to subvert any action on obviously true claims is so overwhelming and clear and powerful, as it obviously was during COVID, as it obviously was when we had information about things we don't name coming out and what the FDA and the CDC were saying, that I have a feeling that they must feel like they have the information, and it's just a question of putting together a bulletproof case and preparing the ground to bring that forward. And what that will look like, what they will say, I don't know. But just the fact that we are having this conversation, no matter how things go over the course of the next few months, and this is something that I think we've got to talk about in terms of health and in terms of politics right now, is like the conversations that we are having that we would not be having if some of these people weren't in positions of authority. And to see that Jay Bhattacharya is where he is, and that Marty Makary is where he is, and that they fired tens of thousands of employees out of some of these agencies because they were, redundant or not doing their jobs. There is so much moving right now that creates space. Now, the people that are on the ground working with patients, working with clients, working with the health messaging on a day-to-day level, we're the ones that have to make it a fertile ground for people to understand. This isn't like people are going to take away your only option and now you have no options. What is it that moves into the place of true health and true healing so that we don't even have to ask the question of, are these choices worth making? And do we have to make this kind of risk-benefit analysis, because we don't have to deal with that level of risk to get that level of benefit. So I see this is happening on a lot of different levels right now. And some of it, I'm sure, is conscious strategy, and some of it is just the way things are coming together because of this time that we're in.
Hey, folks, you've heard Austrian economists talk about time preference. Low time preference is a willingness to defer gratification and plan for the future. Well, that's been an essential factor in the emergence of civilization itself. Well, you can be part of that civilizing process by getting life insurance so your family's needs in the future will be met in case anything should happen to you. The only thing as important as achieving a dream, after all, is protecting it. Protect your family by securing their future with life insurance from Policy Genius. 40% of people wish they'd gotten life insurance at a younger age. You're smarter than those people. I know because you listen to the Tom Woods Show. I myself have tremendous peace of mind because I have life insurance that will provide very well for my family. And Policy Genius is the place to go. With just a few clicks, you can compare quotes from America's top insurers side by side for free with no hidden fees. With Policy Genius, you can find life insurance policies that start at just $292 per year for $1 million of coverage. Some options are 100% online and let you avoid unnecessary medical exams. The licensed support team at Policy Genius is great and efficient, and they can answer your questions, take care of paperwork, and function as your unbiased advocate because they don't get paid by the insurance companies. Join thousands of happy Policy Genius customers who left 5-star reviews on Google and Trustpilot. Secure your families tomorrow so you have peace of mind today. Head to policygenius.com or click the link in the description or on the show notes page to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. That's policygenius.com. What about the COVID shots? Has he taken a position on that? I haven't followed him closely enough to know.
As far as I know, he has not. And I would say that that's an area of major contention outside in, at the grassroots and up the chain to people that have done a tremendous amount of work in revealing the not only the damage that was showing up after people were taking them after the rollout, but even what was clearly happening during the clinical testing. There's so much overwhelming evidence that they don't meet the standards that the CDC says that they need to meet, that I think there's a real conversation that could be happening just from the standpoint of following the regulatory rules that are in place. But he has not put a stake in the ground, as far as I know, in the public conversation on that. And there are probably inside reasons for that too. You've really got to pick your battles in a position like that. And I assume that that's what he's doing.
Now, I realize this is entirely speculative, but if September rolls around and he says, well, we've determined that there is a connection between the vaccines and this issue, it would be like a 10 megaton bomb going off. I mean, you can't even imagine the hysteria that would ensue. And it's also interesting, Jay Bhattacharya could not be described as anti-vax on any level, with the exception of the COVID vaxes. He thinks there were some problems there, and obviously the mandate shouldn't have happened. So I don't even know if there's going to be. I don't know what that relationship is going to be like. Mm-hmm. But it seems to me it doesn't even matter how well he lines it up or how solid the evidence is. The existing establishment just cannot allow that even to be a hypothesis.
Yeah. I don't know what to say because I've had these same thoughts that if the world isn't ready to hear something, it's not just a question of the vested interests coming back and fighting it. There isn't fertile ground for the Overton window to move that far and for the narrative to shift. And so I think we're in this time where this window is really opening up and we can really have these conversations. But to try to, I'm anticipating that whatever this bomb is, there will be some nuance to it, and that there will be some way of massaging the message, because otherwise I don't know how this moves forward. And that's why my interest is in I don't like to get too deep in the weeds with this thing is the problem versus this thing being the problem, with what's going on with someone's health or how to protect yourself or how to deal with what comes along. There's a book by Stephen Templeton, Fear of a Microbial Planet, where he talks about the importance of having this exposure to illnesses and how this was something that really reached the height of crazy neuroses during COVID, this idea that we should not tune up our immune systems by being exposed to things. So I like to shift it out of that realm and say, how do we create the conditions for the healthiest system that we can possibly have? And how do we have the tools so that when that healthy system encounters something that's pathogenic, we can then throw off the effects of that, but also get any immuno benefits that derive from it? I like to go there because that's what matters to me. How do we keep people healthy? And so as that conversation gets into the limelight, which it really will in September, I hope that we don't lose the forest for the trees. The point of this is, how do we have healthy kids? How do we have healthy people? And how do we have parents who feel like they have resources, that they can trust professionals, that they can make decisions for themselves, and that they don't have to live in fear?
Is it your opinion that, let's say, we might call the alternative health people on social media, do you think they're actually being unfair to RFK? Because I tend to be pretty hardcore, and I expect a lot from people. But do you think there's a possibility they're not being fair to him?
I think
or let me be more specific. That they are very, very hard to please. Is that even if he were 3 times as good as he is now, or as he appears to be, there would always be some other thing he has to jump over.
Sure. Well, as has been pointed out to me a number of times in these conversations, who's waiting in the wings for that job if it's not RFK? Is it going to be someone who is more health freedom friendly? And so while I think we should be having open debates, we should be having these conversations, the alternative health people should be duking it out in the public square. It's really important to the health of any discipline that these arguments happen. But I think also a benefit of the doubt is warranted here. And so I don't think that people should hold back from expressing real and legitimate concerns and criticisms. But there is a lot of piling on that happens just in the negative space where we don't have news, but we do have Twitter. So we got to post something. And what are we going to post? And this is a coalition. It's somewhat fragile. The MAHA thing is something that came out of left field. And I do think it's important to take a wide view and say, what's our long-term goal here is for people to have complete control and autonomy over their health choices and excellent and accurate information about what is being offered to them. And so everything that makes the container bigger and more secure for that is better. And I think that RFK is the best we have right now at putting that in the center, at creating that opportunity. So I'm inclined, and he's put a lot on the line personally to do this, and I'm inclined to give that the benefit of the doubt. And there are people who've told me I'm naive, and there are people who've told me that I'm gullible, and I'm probably to some degree both of those things sometimes, because I like to think there are real people in the world, and I like to think that he's a real person and that he does really care about this issue, and he is hamstrung politically in some ways.
Hey, everybody, this isn't a sponsor message. It's an announcement that I have 11 awesome free things to give you that you're going to love, and not one of them is an ebook. For instance, my public speaking secrets that come from my 30-year career, or Dr. Miriam Grossman on how to inoculate your kids against gender ideology, my 10-lesson middle school course on the foundations of liberty. It isn't available for sale anywhere, but if you want it, it's on the freebies page that I'm telling you about now. Here's one you'll like: a simple way to generate $50 per month in perpetuity without work. Now, I'm wording it that way specifically to annoy people who refuse to believe anything. Woods, there's no such thing, they'll say. Oh, but there absolutely is. I earn 3 times that much with it, and I am not joking. Or how about this? Chances are you're right like a dork. I hate to break it to you, but since 90% of the public does, that likely includes you. I'll help you stop, which means you'll stand out in whatever you do. Or how about a case study in which one of my friends who built a 7-figure recipe website shares how she did it? There are more, 11 in total. To get them, all you have to do is say maybe to my awesome School of Life program that everyone raves about. Give it a spin for 30 days for $1, and you can have the 11 freebies in perpetuity. Get them now at 11freebies.com. Let me ask you something unrelated to that, and just because the way I introduced you. Now, I'm not a health person. I mean, I'm interested in health, but I have no background in it. Mm-hmm. And if somebody hears so-and-so is a homeopath, a lot of times what those people hear is this person's a crank, a flake. This person has there are no real studies supporting what this person believes. And so, yes, I may have a problem with the medical establishment. That doesn't make me a homeopath. So how do you defend your side of things?
Sure. Well, so they think that, or they think it's something else in the natural health world is the other thing that can happen. So, I mean, we defend it first and foremost with results. Homeopathy is effective and it is safe. And I don't even like to use those words because they have been so hijacked, but this is not a new form of medicine. Hahnemann developed homeopathy in the late 18th and early 19th century, and it was a prominent and dominant form of mainstream medicine until the medical establishment founded the American Medical Association 3 years after the American Association of Homeopaths was founded, to fight the homeopaths because they were upset that the public was choosing homeopathy because it was so much more effective. And the reason that they were choosing homeopathy was because they saw the results, and this is all historically documented, during these huge epidemics in Europe in the 18th and 19th century that homeopathy was so much more effective for. And so this was a mainstream form of medicine until it was pushed out of the mainstream. And I think the thing that we really got to see during COVID was what I love what's happening right now in so many ways, in which all of these institutions that were previously unassailable, pharmaceutical companies, public health, now also the judiciary, all of these voting, all of these different institutions that nobody thought twice about, we've come to see, oh my gosh, these institutions are all heavily politicized, heavily manipulated, huge amounts of money running the pharma medico-industrial complex. And they have a lot of reasons, really, really high ticket reasons, not to let any other kind of safe, effective, and inexpensive medicine move into the mainstream. So I think that what we can look at who the enemies of homeopathy are and say, gosh, those are great enemies to have if you actually care about health and healing. And then we can look at the results and say, wow, people really do get better with this stuff. And certainly for acutes, taking care of kids, taking care of animals, taking care of day-to-day stuff, why you would ever do anything else, it's hard to imagine.
All right, now let's talk politics for a minute.
Yeah.
I mean, these days health and politics are very much intertwined, but let's leave the health out of it for a minute. I think I've talked plenty, both on this show and in my email newsletter, and I'm gonna remind people you should be getting the email newsletter. It's really, really good. And I have a whole selection of goodies you can get along with it at tomsfreebooks.com. And people are, Sarah, the money people spend on books when they could just get my free books at Tom's.
I know, I've got them.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to learn a lot from them. Anyway, I've said a lot about how I feel about where Trump is right now, how he got started, where things are going right now. So I think people know where I'm unhappy. And so there's been a lot of argument about this. And you apparently, I don't know what your take is, which is why I'm about to ask you about it. What is your take?
Yeah. I wrote a column. I wrote an article for the Brownstone Institute a couple of weeks ago, and it's called The Vital Force of a Nation. And it is about thinking about the Trump presidency, both in 2016 and now, as in homeopathic terms, and thinking about him as what we call in homeopathy, the stronger similar disease. I don't know how he does what he does. I don't know who he really is, but it is clear. It was so clear in 2016 that when he came, it was a surprise to the establishment that he was elected. And then, or at least that's how it looked. And when he got into power, everything, if we even take his most critical, hostile opponents at their word and describe him in their terms, every gross, unethical, vulgar, backhanded, money grabbing, everything they've ever said about him, it was all on display in everything his opponents did. It was like his presence brought into the limelight all of the sleaziest, slimiest stuff about the entire establishment. And it was almost like he showed up and this massive aggravation happened in the system where everything they accused him of, they just did more and more and more of. And then I think we had this, when I wrote in my essay that the period of 2020 and what happened with that election and this soft coup and all of that, it was like, and COVID itself, it was like this suppression, the authoritarian shut it down energy, the Obama Biden approach to things that came back into power and tried to get control again. And then we have Trump coming back in 2024 like a redose of this remedy. And he's turned up to 11. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think everything he's doing is a demonstration of all of these levers that should not exist, that shouldn't be in the hands of one person. And it's all just coming out in louder and louder and louder terms. And you get this situation where the people who hate him are arguing against the things they were advocating 4 years ago, 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and vice versa. And it really blows open all of the hypocrisy. And we're having conversations about, all of a sudden, we're talking about judicial fiat. Who besides those of us in the libertarian inner corners where nobody was listening to us was talking about legislation from the bench? And now all of these conversations are in the mainstream because he's so big and difficult to understand, and he just makes everything blow up and show up in the mainstream. And frankly, I love it because if you had told me that we would be talking about any of this 5 years ago, I wouldn't have believed you. And now it's all out on the table. We're talking about the Department of Education. We're talking about somebody who has been openly hostile to medical mandates, more than one person in positions of authority inside the institution. It's just amazing to watch. And it would not be happening if it weren't for whatever the Trump phenomenon is. And I mean, it might be creative destruction, but I'll take it over where things were going.
Yeah, I understand that. I think it's just that when he's bad on something, he's preposterously bad.
Oh my gosh, all over the place he's
like he's not just a little bit bad. He's not even in some ways, like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney would be bad. Like, look, I can think of ways that Mitt Romney was catastrophically worse than Trump. But sometimes Mitt Romney bad would mean the Democrats want to increase the minimum wage this much. I just want to increase it this much, which makes no sense because if it's okay to increase it this much, why not increase it that? Like he's already yielded the whole argument.
Right.
But there you just go, well. But some of these things, I just
Yeah.
I just can't get over it. Like I can't get over it. So it's I get it, but yet at the same time I lose sight of there are some areas where we're talking about things that were absolutely unfathomable even a few years ago. And that is something, but geez, does it have to come at this cost?
Well, I think we are really, I don't think that we can sustain a society, a country, a culture if we have wild, unexplained, unexplainable, unpredictable gyrations and decisions happening where no one sees it coming and it's all brinksmanship. And I do think that in a lot of ways, we've been living with we've been living with that at a level one for a really long time. And we libertarians have been talking about the danger of executive orders and executive fiat, which I mean, when did that explode under W? When did that really explode?
That was, we wrote a chapter about that in Who Killed the Constitution, Kevin Gutzman and I. We were thinking about George W. Bush, but it really exploded under Teddy Roosevelt. So it had been festering for quite a long time. And the thing is that you can make an argument that, at least in a lot of cases, Trump may actually be using them correctly. If he's using them to direct executive agencies, I think that's what they're for.
Well, and I think one of the things that's really brought to my attention, and maybe it's a little bit embarrassing to say that I hadn't thought about it deeply on these terms, but where is Congress? I mean, if people don't like this, where's Congress? And the extent to which this wildness at the executive level has revealed the utter, useless is too kind a word for what appears to be going on in the entire legislative branch, where, they could make a lot of these problems go away by making good laws and getting rid of bad laws, enforcing the laws that we have. And yet, no, it's just all Trump. And so I think we're seeing this. I can't possibly defend. I can't defend what I wouldn't try to say Trump is great. His what he's doing makes sense to me, that these tariffs and the idea of, but and then I don't even know how much of it is just part of the brinksmanship. Is it a negotiating thing to talk about sending American prisoners abroad to foreign prisons, which is clearly a constitutional issue? I don't know. But I do know that it's accelerating something into the foreground that, well, I don't think the country can continue to work the way it works. How can we have 350 million people how can California be trying to tell Florida what to do and Maine trying to tell Mississippi what to do? And in a way, what's happening right now to me, especially with things like Elon having to scale it back from 1 trillion to 500 billion to now we're at what 150 billion in savings he says he can do with Doge, to see, wow, this thing's really unworkable. Here you go. Here it is, all laid out. This is an unsolvable problem. And we have hundreds of legislators who are elected who actually don't really have any interest in solving it. And that's become clear to me. I knew it, but watching this all just be a show has made it really clear to me. And we can move forward when we have the truth. I always have appreciated that about Lou Rockwell, that he would always say, I know this sounds like bad news, but understanding it and seeing that it is the truth really does set you free. And I've always appreciated that. And it's always given me comfort.
Well, let me take a minute to tell people. Back in 2020, the Free State Project decided to go ahead and hold the Porcupine Freedom Festival, Porkfest, which has been held for many years in New Hampshire. They decided to hold it even though, or perhaps because, events all over the country and around the world were being canceled. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Now, I had never been to Porkfest, but I made a special effort to be there that year and the following year because I was so impressed that they bucked the trend like that. I just couldn't get it. Now, this is, since it's Porcupine, it's PORC Fest, porkfest.com. So I went and had such a tremendous time. I gave a couple of talks. I saw so many friends, and I made a lot of friends. It was just everywhere I looked. Well-wishers, interesting people with a variety of skills, a lot of great food. As I've said before, not enough late-night food. Somebody could fix that and make a fortune at Porkfest. A fortune. There was a fortune waiting to be made with late-night food. You got that idea from Old Woods here. But they've got, I guess they've got Bob Murphy coming this year. They got Scott Horton coming. They have Connor Boyack of the Tuttle Twins. He's going to do a Tuttle Twins reading for the kids. They've got more family activities than they've ever had. Eric Brakey, former Maine state senator, is going to do a mock legislature for the older kids. All kinds of interesting things. Clifton Duncan, the trim, you've heard him on the Tom Woods Show. He's tremendous. To have a chance to meet him. I mentioned Scott Horton, and you, Sarah Thompson, will be speaking there also. So porkfest.com. You should go. You should go. You'll have a tremendous time. PORCFEST, porkfest.com. And you're going to meet our guest, Sarah Thompson, there. What do you mean? Give us a sneak preview of what you're going to tell people there.
Sure. And this isn't some rarefied thing where all of the speakers are at, a private dinner. This is, everybody is mingling. Scott's at the Libertarian Institute tent. You can get Scott wound up. If you need to kill, half an hour.
Half an hour? What are you talking about? 2 hours?
2 hours, right. So, and I'm there all week. I stay there. I camp on site, and my site is, people can stop by and talk whatever, hanging out with Eric Brakey over there and talking about whatever, talking homeopathy, talking libertarianism. But I probably give a couple of additional speech talks as well at different hubs, but I'm doing a series of talks in, there's a conference room, and I'm doing a series of afternoon talks. It'll be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday from 4 to 6. So it'll be like a happy hour. Go ahead and, bring a beer, bring a snack. And I'm going to give a talk each evening, but then open it up to a salon style conversation. And I have 3 different topics that I'm going to queue up. And I haven't even really written these talks yet at all, but I think they're going to be really fun. So the first one is, I don't know which order they're going to be, but child sacrifice as a progressive, quote, social value. So that one is all about the idea of putting children in danger as a means of gathering and maintaining social status within political and cultural movements. And I don't know where I'm going to go with it, but it feel like it needs to be talked about, because this is so weird that people will do things to their minor children that are not okay, and then brag about it. And what is this about? So that's one thing I want to queue up a conversation about. Another is who stole your healthcare, and the role that the American Medical Association has played in not just reducing, but actually making illegal your options for understanding and treating your own health. Not just a question of how you get medicine. We're not just at the level of who can buy ivermectin, but actually at the level of what other approaches could there be to some of these serious or minor everyday kinds of health issues that people have? Where does all this chronic disease come from? Whose interest is it in to have so much chronic disease? Why is it never cured? So that's a conversation that we're going to have. And then Trump as the stronger similar disease, something on the topic of politics and understanding these things through the lens of susceptibility and similars, and the idea that when there's a situation that has become untenable, it sometimes the thing that is going to allow that situation to heal is something that's going to force it to look in the mirror and see how sick it has become. And there's so much revelation taking place in the recent past. I mean, that was something that was so powerful for me. I think one of the most powerful things for me about the whole Doge rollout early on was that we've suspected that all of these organizations, that somehow the money was coming from somewhere to influence elections and drive all sorts of nonprofit activities in these small communities. I mean, Maine is all small towns. That we knew this money was coming from somewhere, but to really find out, but we were so gaslit about it. And then to really find out, wow, this money was coming out of our own pockets to pay people to use it against us. That's an example of where just knowing the truth is such a relief because we knew it in our guts. And so I'm going to be talking about that and how to understand what's going on through that lens, because these are not comfortable times. I certainly can't say, oh, I love all these policies and they're going to make life better tomorrow. I'm not saying that. Although I love having light bulbs back and Ross and light bulbs, and I will die on that hill.
Yeah. I hear you. Well, I want to end on this. I rather suspect people come to you for your services, not always necessarily because they've made a philosophical or ideological or scientific commitment to your particular approach, as much as it is, I'm suffering, I've gone through the traditional channels, I have this condition or I have this pain, the doctors give me the runaround, nobody seems to know what it is, they put me on this, they put me on that, the thing gets worse. What have I got to lose? I might as well try Sarah Thompson. I think some people get to that point. So what is there? So what do you do? And what's a website, or where do you want to send people?
So what I do is I make myself available to talk to people about that. NoDrugHealth.com/Tom, TOM, will take people to my website to a free download, and you can book a free call with me. My website is NoDrugHealth.com. You can explore there. But if you go to /Tom, there's some goodies and some discounts for you. And I start with a free call with people, and then we take it from there. So if it looks like we want to continue the conversation, we talk about, okay, here are the different options for your healing what's going on with you. And these are the different ways in which I work. And we just keep that conversation going until I've got, their questions answered, and we can get to how are these things connected? What's at the root of all of this? And how can we get you healed so you don't need me anymore? I mean, that's the goal. Is not to keep me in the loop forever. You can keep bringing me back because I'm really good at helping people navigate all of the process of healing, which really plays out on so many levels. I mean, I end up doing a lot of coaching. I end up working with people long-term all the time. But those initial physical things that you want gone, we want to get them gone, not maintained with medication. Gone. That is the goal.
All right. So NoDrugHealth.com/Tom is where you're sending people. So
yes.
Check that out. I like NoDrugHealth.com. I wonder where you got that idea. Anyway, Sarah, it was wonderful talking to you once again. I hope people do visit you, get to know you at Porkfest. and also visit you virtually, nodrughealth.com/Tom. Thanks a million.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Make yourself and those you love less vulnerable to the regime, both mentally and physically. Get more forbidden information at tomsfreebooks.com and be sure to subscribe to the show wherever you listen. See you next time.
Like the sound of The Tom Woods Show? My audio production is provided by Podsworth Media. Check them out at podsworth.com.